If you had told me 3 years ago that the woman who broke my heart would one day thank me, I would have laughed in your face. But life's funny like that. It has a way of burning everything down, only to hand you a match and ask, "So, you ready to rebuild?" My name is John Krasinski, and this is the story of how my sister destroyed my future and how I built a better one in spite of her. Let me rewind. 3 years ago, I thought I had it all. A good job designing custom print materials from my tiny home studio, a modest apartment I'd worked hard for, and Jason, my fiancé of 2 years. Tall, charming, smart. He worked in marketing and always had a million ideas and zero time. But when he was with me, I felt seen. Like I wasn't just some guy trying to make a dream work. Like I was enough. We met at a local arts fundraiser. I was selling hand-printed posters. He bought one, complimented my style, and we ended up getting drinks that night. 2 years later, we were picking out wedding dates and talking about down payments. Life wasn't perfect, but it was ours. And then came the crash. Her name is Kayla, my sister. 2 years younger, prettier by most people's standards, and the kind of woman who walks into a room and gets everyone's attention, whether she wants it or not. Kayla and I used to be close. I mean, really close. Movie nights, inside jokes, late-night texts about weird dreams and childhood memories. She was my best friend, and that made the betrayal all the more brutal. It started small. Jason began acting distant. Longer hours, less eye contact, fewer I love yous. I asked if something was wrong. He'd always smile that polished smile and say, "Just stressed, work stuff." And I believed him. I always believed him. Until one afternoon, when I came home early from a canceled client meeting, I found Kayla in my apartment. Not just stopping by or dropping something off. She was in one of Jason's t-shirts, hair damp from a shower, sitting at my kitchen island like she belonged there. I stood frozen in the doorway, keys in hand. "John," she said, startled. "Where's Jason?" I asked, my voice flat. She looked down. "He just left, said he was going to the store." I didn't speak, didn't yell. I just turned around and walked back out the door. Jason showed up later that night, tried to explain, said it was a mistake, that they'd been drinking, that it didn't mean anything. And then, with a straight face, he said, "Maybe we weren't meant to get married. Maybe you and I just grew apart." 2 weeks later, he and Kayla made it official. The betrayal broke something in me, not just the heartbreak, the humiliation. They went public fast, too fast, posting selfies, attending family dinners, acting like nothing happened. Kayla didn't even flinch. She once texted me a link to a new apartment they were touring, saying, "Can you believe how cute this place is?" I blocked her after that, and I didn't speak to her again. The next 3 years were hard. I moved out of the city, rented a small place near the edge of town, near a quiet park and an old bakery that made the best croissants I've ever tasted. I worked, a lot, took on every project I could find, taught myself digital illustration, built a new portfolio, rebranded my site. At night, I drank tea and watched sunsets from my back porch. I started sleeping again. Not perfectly, but enough. And slowly, I began to breathe again. I stopped checking their socials, stopped asking mutual friends for updates. I let go, or at least I thought I did. Then came Sarah. She messaged me after buying a piece of my art through an online shop, said it reminded her of her grandmother's old garden, asked if I took commissions. I said yes. We started emailing, then talking, then FaceTiming. She was warm and curious, funny without trying. She had this way of listening that made me feel like my words actually mattered, like I mattered. She was a children's book editor, quiet work, detail-oriented, thoughtful, the kind of person who cried at commercials and memorized everyone's coffee order. When we finally met in person, I knew. Not in a dramatic movie scene way, but in the quiet way you know that rain is coming. I looked at her across the table, smiling over a mug of chai, and thought, this is it. This is safe. This is home. We dated for a year, moved in together the next fall, got married in a tiny backyard ceremony surrounded by wildflowers and the smell of fresh bread from the neighbor's oven. My mom cried. My friends danced like maniacs. Sarah wore a simple dress and no shoes. And I felt whole, truly whole. Not the version of me I used to be, not the one trying to prove I was worth staying for, but the one who finally believed it. I hadn't thought about Kayla or Jason in a long time. They became background noise, memories dulled by time and forgiveness I never thought I had in me. But life likes a twist. And mine came on a Tuesday afternoon. I was grabbing coffee after a client meeting when I heard someone call my name. I turned, and there she was. Kayla. I hadn't seen Kayla in nearly 3 years. But there she was, right in front of me, holding a paper cup and wearing that same leather jacket she used to borrow from my closet when we were younger. For a second, neither of us moved. Then she smiled, awkwardly. "Hey," she said. I didn't answer. I turned back toward the counter, waiting for my coffee. She stepped closer. "Wow, you look really different." "I guess betrayal will do that," I replied, not looking at her. She flinched, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of the girl I used to know. Not the sister who stole my fiancé, just Kayla, my baby sister. The one who made me friendship bracelets when we were kids. The one who sat on my bed crying when her first crush ghosted her. I took a deep breath and finally faced her. "What do you want?" She bit her lip. I didn't plan to run into you, I swear. I was just meeting a friend. I didn't even know you lived around here." I didn't believe her, but I didn't argue. She continued, "I've thought about reaching out so many times, but I figured you'd block me again." "You figured right." She winced. "I deserve that." A long pause. Then she said, "I'm not with Jason anymore." I raised an eyebrow. "Didn't work out? Shocking." She gave a dry laugh. "We lasted almost 2 years, but yeah. Turns out cheating isn't the best foundation for a relationship." I crossed my arms. "You're not here to make peace, are you?" She looked down at her cup. "Honestly, I'm not even sure why I walked over. I guess part of me just wanted to see you, to see if you're okay." I stared at her, then slowly said, "I am." She looked up, and something in her eyes changed, like she wasn't expecting that answer, like she'd been holding on to some warped image of me, broken and bitter and alone. "You seem good," she said quietly. "I am," I repeated, and I meant it. "Anyway," she said after a moment, "I'll let you go." She turned to leave, but then stopped. "I know you'll probably never forgive me, and I get it, but I'm sorry, John, truly." I nodded once. She walked away, and I stood there, coffee in hand, heart strangely calm. That night I told Sarah everything. She listened, eyes wide, then shook her head. "That takes nerve." She looked smaller, I said. "Not physically, just deflated." Sarah leaned into me. "You handled it well." "I didn't throw coffee at her, if that's what you mean." She smiled. "That's a start." Then gently she asked, "How did it feel?" I thought for a moment. Not as satisfying as I expected. Sarah reached for my hand. "Because you've already moved on." And she was right. A few weeks passed. Then one Sunday, Sarah and I were at the farmer's market when we bumped into Kayla again. Only this time she wasn't alone. She was with Mom. My mother saw us first. She lit up, waved, and practically ran across the market aisle. "John!" she exclaimed, hugging me tightly. "I didn't know you'd be here." Sarah greeted her warmly, and for a moment it was nice, comfortable. Then Kayla walked up, slower, more guarded. "Hey again," she said to me. "Hi, Sarah." Sarah smiled politely. "Hi, Kayla." We stood there in the middle of the market like characters in a tense family drama, surrounded by tomatoes and lavender bundles. Then Mom did what only moms know how to do. She ignored the tension completely. "Why don't we all grab lunch?" she said. "It's been forever since we sat down together." I opened my mouth to say no, but Sarah squeezed my hand and said, "Sure." I looked at her, startled. She whispered, "You've got nothing to prove, but she might." We found a table outside a small cafe. Kayla sat across from us, fidgeting with her napkin. Mom did most of the talking, catching up on everyone's lives, asking Sarah about work, me about new projects. Eventually, the conversation circled back to Kayla. And that's when it happened. She laughed at something Mom said and turned to me with a smirk. "You know," she said, "I used to think you'd always be the struggling one." I froze. "What's that supposed to mean?" I asked. She shrugged. "Back then, you were barely making rent. Jason and I used to joke that you were the artsy dreamer, the one who'd never make real money." Sarah stiffened beside me. My jaw tightened. "And now?" I asked. Kayla gave a weak laugh. "Well, now it's obvious we were wrong." She glanced at Sarah. "You two seem solid, comfortable." "We're more than comfortable," Sarah said firmly. "We're happy." Kayla went quiet. Then she whispered, "He cheated on me, you know. Jason, multiple times. And when I confronted him, he said he missed stability, whatever that means." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. She looked up at me, eyes glassy. "I guess I just wanted to feel like I won, like stealing him meant something." I nodded slowly. "And now?" She wiped at her eyes and smiled bitterly. "Now I realize I didn't win anything. I just lost my brother." The rest of lunch was quiet. Mom tried to change the subject, but the tone had already shifted. When we got up to leave, Kayla walked over and said, "Thank you for not throwing it back in my face." I nodded once. Sarah reached over and gave my hand a little squeeze as we walked away. "You okay?" she asked. "Actually," I said, "I am." After that lunch, something shifted. Not just between Kayla and me, but inside me. I didn't forgive her right then. It wasn't some magical tear-filled moment where I suddenly felt whole again. It wasn't like that. But for the first time in years, I didn't feel the weight of her betrayal pressing against my ribs. I felt free. Like the story she and Jason had written for me, the one where I was the poor forgotten one, wasn't mine anymore. It never really was. And that sense of peace? That's when the past comes knocking again. Always. It happened the following week. Sarah and I were having brunch with a friend when my phone buzzed. Blocked number. I usually ignore those. But for some reason I answered. John? I froze. It was Jason, the last person I ever expected or wanted to hear from. What do you want? I said, instantly tense. I need to talk to you. I laughed. Pretty sure we passed that exit about 3 years ago. He exhaled. I know, I don't deserve your time, but I messed up. And not just with you. I said nothing. I'm sorry, he continued. Not just for cheating or leaving, but for how I treated you. Like you weren't enough. Like I was doing you a favor by being in your life. My fingers clenched around my phone. He kept talking. I see it now. I see everything I threw away, and I wanted to say that to your face. I don't owe you anything, I said. You're right, he replied. You don't, but maybe I owe myself this last piece of truth. There was a long silence. Then I said, where? We met at a public library, neutral ground. He looked older, paler, like stress had been living rent-free on his face for a while. I sat across from him, arms crossed. Say what you need to say, I told him. He took a breath. You were good to me, better than I ever deserved. And I didn't leave because I stopped loving you. I left because I didn't love myself enough to stay. I narrowed my eyes. That's supposed to make it better? No, he said softly, just honest. He pulled out a small envelope and slid it across the table. I wrote this a while ago, wasn't brave enough to send it, but maybe it's time. I didn't touch it. He stood up. One more thing, he said. You and Sarah? You look happy, like really happy. We are, I said firmly. He nodded and walked away. That night I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the envelope. Sarah walked in and sat beside me. Want me to burn it? She asked with a smile. I laughed quietly. Tempting. I opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter. Long, rambling, full of apologies, memories, regrets. One line stood out. You were the first person who made me feel seen, and I repaid that with betrayal. I hope someday you can forget me, even if you can't forgive me. I folded the letter and slid it back into the envelope. I'm done, I said. Good, Sarah whispered, wrapping her arms around me. You deserve peace. A few days later, Kayla reached out again. Not to ask for anything, just to talk. She wanted to meet for coffee. This time I said yes. We sat by the window of a quiet cafe. No pretenses, no big emotions. Just two people, learning to rebuild a bridge, one slow, hesitant brick at a time. I saw Jason last week, she said. I nodded. Me too. He called me afterward, she added. Said it was the first time he felt real closure. I shrugged. Maybe he did. She stared at her drink. I think he still wants to be part of our lives. He's not welcome in mine, I said calmly. She nodded. Same. There was a pause. Then she looked up and asked, Would you ever forgive me? Fully, I mean. I didn't answer right away. Then I said, Forgiveness isn't about forgetting or pretending it didn't hurt. It still does, doesn't it? She asked. Less than before, but yeah. She gave a small smile. I miss you, John. I miss the version of you that didn't lie to me, I said gently. She swallowed. Maybe I can find that version again. Maybe, I said, but it'll take time. She nodded. I'm okay with that. As I walked home that afternoon, something strange happened. I didn't feel bitter. I didn't feel hollow. I felt grateful. Grateful for the mess. Grateful for the chance to choose peace over anger. Grateful for the woman waiting for me at home, who loved me in all the quiet ways I used to dream about. Kayla may have taken Jason, but she also cleared the path for me to find someone better. Someone right. And that's the kind of ending I never saw coming. A few months later, Sarah and I were out walking our dog, Milo, when she stopped suddenly. We'd passed a small, empty storefront 100 times. It had always been closed. Dusty windows, faded lease sign. But that morning, there was a new paper taped to the glass. Now accepting tenant applications, Sarah turned to me, eyes wide. What if, she said slowly, you opened your own studio? I blinked. What? She smiled. Seriously, your own art space. A place where you could work, maybe host little workshops or sell your prints directly. You've been talking about needing a creative push. I laughed. I thought we were just walking Milo. We are, she said, and maybe we're walking into something more. 3 months later, Krasinski Printworks opened its doors. It was small, humble. 1 room for working, 1 wall for selling. A little back nook with coffee and mismatched chairs where clients could sit and chat. The grand opening was nothing fancy, just some neighbors, a tray of cookies from Sarah's mom, and a playlist of all the songs that got me through heartbreak. Kayla came too. She brought a bouquet of sunflowers and stood quietly in the back until the crowd thinned. Then she walked over and handed me a small box. Inside was a keychain, simple leather stamped with the initials JK. "I had it made," she said. "You always used to talk about having your own shop." I smiled, touched in spite of myself. "Thanks." She paused. "This place feels like you." "That's the point," I said. She nodded. "I'm proud of you, John. I really am." I looked at her. "I hope you're proud of you too." She didn't answer, but she stayed a while. That was enough. Sarah and I built something here, something rooted in quiet mornings and real laughter and holding space when one of us needs silence. We make art. We host kids from the local school once a month for a printmaking day. We eat soup on rainy nights and binge old cooking shows we'll never try to replicate. Life is simple and rich in ways I never thought possible. Sometimes people still ask me about the past, about Jason, about Kayla, about how I survived all that pain. And here's what I say. It didn't destroy me. It refined me. Yes, it hurt. Yes, I lost people I loved. Yes, it shattered everything I thought I could count on. But it cleared the path. It forced me to see my own strength, my own value. It made space for Sarah, for this life, for this version of myself I'm finally proud to be. One evening I found myself cleaning out an old memory box. Inside, tucked between some old drawings and letters, was a photo. Me and Kayla. We were little, maybe 6 and 4, sitting on the steps outside our childhood home, messy hair and popsicle-stained fingers. Back when things were easy. I smiled. Then I carefully slid the photo into a new frame and placed it on a shelf at the studio, beside my wedding photo with Sarah and a group shot from our first kids' workshop. Because even the broken parts of our past still shape who we become, and I've stopped being afraid of them. So here's what I know now. You don't need closure from the people who hurt you. You don't need revenge or dramatic apologies. You just need to choose peace, over and over again. And sometimes, if you're lucky, life hands you something even better than what you thought you lost. Thanks for listening. This is my story, and I wouldn't change a thing.